Hey, welcome to another writing live stream. Today I'm going to be talking about doing revisions and my revision process and how to keep working on a deadline when there's stuff that continually hits, uh, stuff coming after you all the time. So to start on the revision process, as some of you guys who follow me might know, I'm working on revisions on an epic fantasy book I'm working on. And I just kind of wanted to go through the process of what it is that I'm doing and what I'm looking for. So what I do as part of my revision process is obviously I finish the draft of the book and then put it away. And in the case of this book, I wrote 2 more manuscripts before I came back to this. I think that's important. I wrote it about like a month or so ago. I think getting away from the material is really important, and trying to forget why you made all the decisions that you made, and to try to really surprise yourself with the prose, I think, is really important. And what I did at that point, now that I decided I'm going to start revising this, is I printed it out. And I'm going to grab some of these pages. So I printed it out, and sorry, move over a little bit here. And I'm making notes in different colors. We talked about this a little bit last week. But so I'm going through, and I printed it out in like total manuscript format, and I'm making notes in green, and then one editor is working on these in purple, and another one's going through in red, and there's some pink highlighter too. But we're all going over the book at the same time on one manuscript, so that this is something that I can carry around with me and be able to take the notes in. But I'm not working on it on the computer at all until I've gone through the entire manuscript that way. And I've got almost 700 pages like this that we're going through. Part of that is so that I can get like an overview. Like, I need to know what questions I need to ask myself. There's a lot of questions about characters that I didn't really answer the first time around. It was just writing, and not really asking myself questions about those characters. And now, as a reader, I have those questions, and the only way I've been able to understand what questions I had is by getting away from it for so long. I wrote this over the fall and winter of last year. I wrote that second book in December, January, the next book in December, January, and then February through May, I wrote another book, and then now I'm coming back to this, and I don't remember what the hell I was doing, which is good, which is exactly what you want, because then you can approach it as a reader and say, like, what would a reader expect? What questions would a reader be asking? So that's my process. That's where I'm at in the process now. I've been through about 130 pages. 130 pages of this manuscript so far. I hope to get through the rest over the next few weeks, and then then I'll actually start to get to work. And then as I start working on the draft, maybe I'll pick one theme at a time. I know there's some issues with a character, and I might go through the draft from front to back and only address those issues, just to keep myself focused on what I'm doing. Otherwise, you could just get lost in all of it. So the next thing I want to talk about, and please, if you have any questions, be sure to go ahead and write them in the chat dealy, and I'll answer those as we go. The next thing I wanted to talk about in advance, though, because people ask me about it a lot, is working on deadlines. There's some people who will say, like, oh, I only want to work when the inspiration hits me, which is fine for some people, but I think it would be hard to make a living as a writer if you only wrote when you were inspired to write, because I find wanting to eat inspiring personally, so I'm always inspired to write, which is why I think today is I keep track of this in my journal. Today is my 336th day of writing in a row without missing a day. And that, I've been through a whole bunch of travel, conventions, pneumonia, a whole bunch of things, but just keeping at it every day is important. Hey, it's the old war lizard. Well, hello. As far as working on deadlines, like I'm working with a lot of different outlets, and they have a lot of different deadlines. Like with my StarWars.com pieces, one of the ways that I stay ahead on my deadlines is that I have the next. I actually have with the playlist column. So I've got every other Monday the playlist comes out, and then every other Monday the Cinema Behind Star Wars comes out. I've actually got the next 6 written. And those are just at the editors, with the editors there. They can do whatever they want to edit them in the meantime. Much of it is just so that I can stay ahead, and that if I need to take a week off, I can do that. Maybe the next week I'll write 2, but I try to consistently stay 6 weeks ahead on that stuff, especially since there's the chance that some of the other foreign language versions of the site have translated some of this stuff occasionally. The other thing is just planning time out, carving time out to work on things. I know with my pieces for How Stuff Works, sometimes the deadlines are a little harder to hit because I have to get a quote from someone. I have to find an expert in a field, get a quote from them, and incorporate that into the piece. And sometimes you'll find that the quotes don't necessarily fit. The quotes don't necessarily fit the story you had in your head when you started writing, so you've got to rewrite. But as long as you're planning specific amounts of time every day to work on those pieces, then that's what's going to do. Oh, so we have Derek Hunter in here. Hello, Derek. What is my goal for each day for writing? So it really depends on the project or what I'm working on. I set my goal in amount of time spent. So every morning I go to the coffee shop and it's like 2 hours. So I get there at 6 and I work till 8. And however much I can get done in that time is the accomplishment for me. So I'm not tracking. I mean, I am tracking word count, and on really good days I'll have 3,000-4,000 word days. And on light days, I'll have maybe, I've tracked days in my notebook where I only wrote 30 words. But like right now where I'm working on revisions, the time spent working on the revisions is more important than the actual like word count come from. And so really time spent and time dedicated to it, that's something I kind of pulled from John Cleese, actually. I'm not sure, you could look for it on YouTube after this, but John Cleese has a video where he talks about the nature of creativity, and that we need to create an oasis of time and an oasis of space, like a quiet place where no one's going to bother us, and a set amount of time where we can just do our thinking and our writing. And I think part of that is so much what writing is about, right? Just thinking about stuff. So I wouldn't, I would set the goal to set the time aside and focus on it, and however many words you get out is the right answer. And then that way you're never getting burned out too, because sometimes, say, you need to do research for that writing, whether that's reading a book or getting research material or reading an encyclopedia or Wikipedia or whatever. That counts as part of your writing time, and so as long as you're dedicating the time, you're not going to burn out. So the next question is Jeff, and he wants to know if I'm returning to Dragon Con this year. I am returning to Dragon Con next year. I will not be there this year. Salt Lake Comic Con and Dragon Con are the same weekend, and since Salt Lake is the home con, they're going to get me. But I will be at Dragon Con next year, and I love Dragon Con. Dragon Con's one of my favorite conventions in the country. And Bryce, where do you get deadlines from? Well, obviously, people are asking for deadlines if you're working on freelance stuff. I know with yours is largely prose. I give myself self-imposed deadlines, and those work well enough for me. Sometimes I miss them. Sometimes I miss my deadlines. Like when I was finishing it's always my deadlines kind of come right when I'm finishing a book. So for the last one I wrote, I told myself I was going to finish it within 2 weeks, and 2 weeks was when I was going to have the last few chapters together, and I didn't. I needed like 4 more days, but the fact that I'd set that deadline, even though I missed it by 4 days, still kept me moving, working on it. And so, yeah, self-imposing them. I think the other thing is like tracking stuff in journals. Like, I keep what I'm doing. Like, I write down all the stuff, all the projects I have to work on in like little check boxes in my notebook every day, so I know that I've made progress on something. I know what my word count is on things. I keep track of my daily word count, and I keep track of my like monthly word count, because and how many words I've written in a particular notebook. So in this notebook so far, I've written, let me see. I think I've had this notebook since the end of April, and I've written about 45,000 words since I've been working in this notebook. So keep track of it. I think keeping track of it is just important, because it gives you a gauge of where you can go and what you can do, and you start to know what you're capable of. I know I'm not capable of that 5,000 words a day every day, but I know that they are possible because I can go through and count how many I've had over the years. I've been doing this in my notebooks I'm looking at my shelf of notebooks up there, and it takes me about 2 months to go through one of these moleskins. And since I've been really actively tracking my daily word count, I've probably got 4 or 5 years of notebooks up there. And that's not the only thing I use the notebooks for. I mean, I use them for everything, for outlining stories, for taking notes for stories, everything. So they're useful, and if you catch me without one of these notebooks, there's probably a body snatching situation going on. So unless there's any more last minute questions, I think that wraps this up. We've gone over a little bit longer than we usually do. Check me out on Twitter at SwankMotron, and you can keep up with my stuff there. Or check my website, BryanYoungFiction.com, and you can order signed copies of books there. Or my website is where I do other blogging about writing and stuff too. And you can check me out on Big Shiny Robot and Full of Sith and all that sort of stuff. So keep writing.